Hello, sports fans, and welcome back to Ball Games and Beyond. I am your host, Evan Groat, and Ball Games and Beyond is brought to you by Sportsnaut.com. Please make sure you're out there subscribing to our Sportsnaut YouTube channel. Click that notifications bell for me while you're at it. And also, please subscribe and follow to the podcast anywhere you get your favorite podcast from. Now, this week we were given a gift here for the podcast. UNLV football. They have a debacle on their hands right now. Their starting quarterback, Matthew Sluka, after 3 games, after a 3-0 start and being ranked in the coaches poll, the USA Today coaches poll, in the top 25 for the first time since 1978, he decides that he is going to stop playing for the remainder of the season. He's going to redshirt, and then at the end of the season, he's going to transfer. Now, this is all from a misunderstanding, I guess you could call it, or a disagreement over NIL money. And this is the era we are now in college sports, with the money being going to the players and the transfer portal. It's a complete mess for UNLV. But this is the times that we live in here. We're going to be joined by our guest here in just a few moments, Mark Anderson. Mark covers Las Vegas sports for the AP. We're going to get him on here to get some of his thoughts, some of his insight onto what is going on here. As you know, I'm sure you've heard the story by now. Matthew Sluka started his career at Holy Cross. Back in December, he was promised by one of the coaches for UNLV, I believe it was the offensive coordinator. He was promised $100,000 if he agreed to come to UNLV to play football. He fulfilled his end of the bargain. He did decide to go to UNLV, but to this point, he has not received any of that money, that $100,000. He has only received $3,000 from the school, and that was for some summertime commitment that he agreed to with them. Parties have gone back and forth. The school has said that there was no agreement in place with the school's collective, which handles all their NIL deals. Sluka's agent, Marcus Cromartie, again, to me, I think he's completely botched this whole effort. He was hired to do one job, and that is to put pen to paper for Matthew Sluka, and he was not able to get that done. Unfortunately for Sluka, these were just kind of verbal agreements that were made, and the school has really denied most of this. They said, there was never an agreement in place. Barry Odom, the head coach, said he never was involved in this whatsoever. And so you can see that the mess that the NIL can create. It's a great thing for the players. It can be a great recruiting tool for coaches, but this is the ugly side of the business, really, that has become college sports. And again, this is kind of the era that we are in. I think what needs to happen is there needs to be more regulations put in place, because right now things are just too murky. It's the wild, wild west out there. Players are coming and going, taking more money, and you can't blame them. This may be the only opportunity that they have to make real big time money. A lot of these people who play college sports, they are not going to the NFL. They are not going to the NBA. They're not going to play Major League Baseball. And so they're chasing money, and they have a very short window to do it. So it's interesting because UNLV is off to such a great start. They're 3-0, as I mentioned, with notable wins over Kansas. And so they're off to a great start. They were on their way possibly to be one of the G5 schools to get a bid to the college football playoff. And so to see their quarterback decide to call it quits after 3 games, it's stunning. It's a stunning development in the world of college football. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more in just a second after I return from this break with our guest, Mark Anderson from the Associated Press. Don't go anywhere. You are listening to Ball Games and Beyond, brought to you by Sportsnaut.com. And welcome back to Ball Games and Beyond. And we are now joined by our guest this week, Mark Anderson, who covers Las Vegas sports for the AP. And Mark, of course, we brought you on here today to talk about the debacle with UNLV football and their former quarterback, Matthew Sluka. Let's jump right into it now. In the era that we are now in with NIL deals and the transfer portal, is this outcome, does this have to be the worst possible outcome for the NCAA? I mean, this has to be a nightmare for them. I just want to get some of your thoughts on what has transpired here in the last, 24 to 48 hours with UNLV.
Yeah, I have to think universities across the country are probably going to use this as an opportunity to really push for direct pay to athletes, direct contracts with athletes. Because trying to go through these third parties, this is why you have this mess. So I think it's just to try to keep it the sort of the amateur model intact when we know that's not really the case. I mean, that's really what they're trying to do by using third parties. So it's I think if you could make it more direct access, not that you eliminate these problems, but you certainly reduce them. And I think Matthew Sluka either would never have come to UNLV under such a circumstance, or he would have come and gotten what he wanted. And because Barry Odom Curley didn't really know what was going on, so it wasn't communicated to him, and that's probably the fault of the assistant coach, and the collective didn't know. And again, the breakdown in communication. So it's a real shame it had to go this way.
Yeah, and I think if we've learned anything from this, it's that the current system has a lot of flaws, right? And I think that the more the more this goes on, NIL, it's a relatively new thing in college sports. There needs to be more regulations, more rules put into place, because right now it's just kind of the wild, wild west. There's really nothing. There's no real set of rules. I mean, there's rules, but they're vague. And so I think the longer time goes on, the more regulations that get in place, it'll help clear up any gray area that there might be when it comes to, deals that are made that are not put on paper.
Yeah, the NCAA has been begging for federal help when it comes to NIL, but the NCAA could do more on its own too. If all the schools agree to more of the direct access, I think that's something everyone could buy into. I don't know how quickly federal help is coming. It seems like if it would have happened, it probably would happen by now. I think the federal government's basically waiting on the NCAA to do things, and we know the NCAA has really had its power sapped away from the major conferences in recent years, but there's still a role for the NCAA to come in here and establish a set of guidelines that everyone can live by.
Yeah. Now, I've been reading a lot about this case recently, and it seems to me like some people want to blame Sluka for his decision to leave the team. They're saying that he quit on the team, but I also understand the perspective of the athletes. This may be the only chance that they have in their lives to make this kind of big money. And so it's hard to, knowing that he could make more money elsewhere, it's hard not to take that opportunity. But to me, it seems like the person that's not getting the finger pointed at them enough is his agent. And Marcus Cromartie, I believe, is the agent's name for Sluka. He totally botched this thing. Again, I mentioned, verbal agreements and are one thing, but without having any of this on paper, that is the one thing that he was hired to do, is to get this deal done, get it done on paper. And he failed to do that. So, why are we not hearing enough about the botched efforts by the agent?
Yeah, he's saying that they couldn't get anything in writing because Sluka wasn't enrolled in UNLV at the time, and he had to be enrolled. But it seems like, okay, you can't get a formal agreement. I understand that, but you can get something in writing. So when this comes up, you have proof that, hey, this is what's agreed upon. And UNLV saying he's not registered in Nevada, which that's on him to get registered in Nevada. I mean, he's an NFL agent. There's an NFL team in Las Vegas, so you would think he'd be registered in Nevada as an agent. So that really surprises me. So those are two things he could have done. I tend to agree with you. That's a criticism I've heard too. That people said that that's you got to get something in writing. It doesn't have to be legally binding, but at least it's proof.
Right. Yeah, and you mentioned the fact that they didn't have something done is because he wasn't enrolled in the school, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying about some of these rules that they currently have in place are a little bit murky. So just needs to be more clear and more transparent for both parties. I think that'll be better off in the long run. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I read something about a running back from UNLV on Wednesday also saying that he was going to redshirt the rest of the season and then transfer as well for what he called opportunities that were never met. I believe that was his wording in his tweet. That player's name is, I think it was Michael Allen. So is this like a trend now that we could be seeing with UNLV? Is there a bigger problem that's looming here for the football team that we just don't know about quite yet? Or is this just kind of more of an isolated thing?
Yeah, I would read too much into Michael Allen. He was fourth on the depth chart. And he clarified on Twitter later that this had nothing to do with NIL. It was about playing opportunities. So that's normal. I mean, it's going to happen. I think USC just had a player just say the same thing, So he came expected a bigger role, an NC State transfer. So he's coming in from Power Four conference. So he thinks coming to a group of five, he's going to get a better opportunity, and not unreasonably so. But it just didn't work out for him here, and so he's going to look elsewhere. So that's really all that was. It was just the timing was odd, and I don't think it played anything to what Sluka did necessarily. So that I wouldn't read anything into.
All right, well, good. I'm glad you cleared that up because I had not heard that yet. So I'm glad you got that cleared up for me. How do you think, the big picture, looking at the UNLV program now, Barry Odom, how do you think this could affect recruiting in the future for Odom?
Well, I mean, the general thinking is if UNLV has the kind of season that they think it can, they still have a great chance at a great season. There was a tough quarterback battle in preseason camp. It wasn't clear cut. It went down really pretty much all the way to the end. So it's not like Sluka was head and shoulders above Malik Williams is now going to be the starter. And Williams is, by all accounts, is a better passer. So it's going to change the offense, but it's UNLV expects to still do really well. So the feeling was if they have another big season, this is probably Barry Odom's last season in Las Vegas anyway. That he'll go to back to the Power Four, where he's already coached in the SEC. So, in the general feeling I talked to people around the program is, yeah, well, that's kind of what you want. You bring him in, and if 2 years later he's leaving for a Power Four, that's why you hired him. So that's my guess is he's going to be gone anyway.
Okay. In the short term, though, you mentioned that UNLV still has a very good chance to have a successful season, off to a 3-0 start, one of their best starts ever. Currently ranked in the top 25. That's the first time they've done that in a very long time as well. But what's the vibe like right now with the players in the locker room? I mean, I'm sure they're not happy to lose one of their brothers starting quarterback, but is the outlook still very optimistic with the players within the locker room?
Well, it's hard to know because they only really have Monday access, so you don't get to ask them that after Monday. But Barry Odom said on his radio show last night they had a great practice. I don't remember if he says their best practice of the season, but it was something along those lines. I mean, read into that what you want, but it sound. And I was at practice yesterday, and the vibe seemed fine to me, just from standing on the sideline. I mean, you can't. It's hard to know, but if he's right and they seem pretty locked in, then I think one thing that really helped too on social media when someone posted a photo of Malik Williams as QB1, several players responded positively right away, including defensive captain Jackson Woodard. He's like something like, "Oh, let's ride," or something like that. So it seems to me they're rallying around him as the quarterback.
Yeah. Sometimes things like this can help, solidify a team even more than maybe they already are. So now in other news involving UNLV, it looks like they're going to be staying in the Mountain West Conference. They were courted by this new big Pac-12 conference, but they decided to stay, and they're going to be getting some financial incentives for doing so. In the long run, do you think this was a good move for UNLV to stay put in the Mountain West?
My initial reaction when it looked like the Pac-12 was going to make them an offer is like, oh, you got to take it. I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. But then when I started asking about it or talking about the people about it, there was real concern from UNLV whether the money that the Pac-12 was offering was something they could truly follow up on. Apparently, they're financing these exit fees. They were skeptical the money the Pac-12 was saying was going to be there from a TV standpoint would actually be there. They dug into the numbers themselves, and they frankly didn't believe all they were being offered. And so they thought the Mountain West is offering us all this money to stay. This isn't a clear step up like they would be going if the Big 12 was calling. Obviously, you take it.
Yeah.
But this wasn't that clear a step up. Yes, it's a little bit better. The Pac-12 took the best remaining Mountain West teams, but it wasn't a massive step up to where all said, "Oh yeah, we're going to go there and be another power conference." That's not happening. And by staying in the Mountain West, not only they get the financial incentives, they can basically take over the Mountain West and be the marquee team there. So I think that was appealing to them as well. Now we'll see where it goes. The Mountain West still needs to add 2 more schools. Pac-12 and he still needs to add another school. So, there's still some work to do from both conferences on moving forward. And so it's there's still a lot of unanswered questions out there.
Yeah, that magic number of 8 is where these conferences need to get to be considered for the college football playoff. So Mark Anderson, everybody of AP, covers Las Vegas sports. Thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for all your insight here on this UNLV situation with Matt Sluka. We appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me on again. I enjoyed doing the show.
Thank you very much.